You marry me?
Yes.
In 1973, Katie McCarthy married the heir to one of New York's largest fortunes. In 1982, she disappeared. Here's your chance to watch an exclusive advanced screening of a full-length feature film before it's in theaters. All Good Things is available now on demand.
Starting with reality is interesting for me. It's full of these remarkable details that you couldn't possibly make up. This particular story was in the tabloids endlessly, and that's partly because the events that happen are so extreme that they seem like things you would have had to make up. This story has within it 30 years of history that include 3 different people dying in mysterious circumstances, and no one's ever been able to unravel the true story that inspired this movie. The inspiration behind this film was the story of Robert Durst, this very interesting and complex man who's accused of doing some incredibly terrible things over many years. But what interested me more was the real person. You know, that person had a mother and a father and had a life, and that there were reasons that drove them toward the kind of behavior that they either did or were accused of doing.
I think that David doesn't fit into his family, wants to be away from people, doesn't want to connect with them. I think he wants to basically be alone, be in nature, and he has a sort of fantasy of his life that's like in the woods and out of the city. And I think that the city represents everything that's wrong with the world. It's sort of this kind of chaotic mess that doesn't make any sense.
A health food store?
Silly, right?
No, I think that's great.
Really?
Yeah, where?
I was thinking in Vermont, maybe.
The character that Kirsten Dunst plays was this stunningly beautiful, incredibly giving person. And when she meets this remarkably different, somewhat odd, but obviously very charming young man, she falls head over heels for him.
Hi.
Forgotten why I'm here.
So Frank Langella plays my father, Sanford Marks, who's a very extremely wealthy real estate investor in New York City who owns like a good portion of Times Square.
Sanford Marks is a billionaire real estate guy who makes life miserable for everybody. His family, his deceased wife, his sons. He's just an unredeemable guy. It's $39.50 each. That includes a generous tip.
There's an interesting relationship between a father and his daughter-in-law, and it often is better than anyone imagines. You know, this is an older man who loves the breath of fresh air that this girl brings into the family, and yet also knows that she doesn't really belong there.
She's never going to be one of us.
Oh, I know. Isn't that great?
So he's able to charm her and cajole her, and he's able to try to persuade her to make his son do what he wants.
But my dad wouldn't give up. He used to say, there's always a way to convince a holdout, you know? I came around.
A lot of people who had a lot of promise and a lot of potential in the beginning, and then through a series of bad decisions and the gray areas in their life, they suddenly became the villain in their own story.
I want to have your child. David.
Okay, if you don't care, we'll just go back to Vermont.
Fine, we'll go back to Vermont. Fine, it won't be like when you grew up.
I think it's very typical that we want to see, more than anything else, ourselves on the screen. And if we don't see ourselves, and instead we want to see something monstrous or something that we fear our lives might be like.
All people see are the fancy office towers. Marx owns some of the worst buildings in Times Square. He's the problem.
You have to let me go. This is killing me.
David!
I've decided to reopen the investigation into the disappearance of Catherine Marks.
Cadaver dogs uncovered a body. I'm gonna blow the lid off. You know what I'm talking about.
This case was never properly resolved, and is something that the district attorney should take a new interest in. And I think that would be that'd be a really interesting outcome.
Magnolia Pictures presents All Good Things. Watch it now before it's in theaters.